Alright, we're up to part number 3 of my favorites of a Next Fest 2024, the October edition. This is another video of my favorite demos from the collection, and there'll be plenty more coming tomorrow. So with that, here's today's picks. For the first game on the list, we go to Somber Echos. This feels like a Greek mythology by way of the body horror and destruction of Dead Space. We play a woman who is trying to stop her sister from unleashing hell on board a space station, and to do that we must run, jump, dash, and more, killing anything that gets in our way. I really like the art direction, especially some of the character designs in this one. As for our gameplay, this is going to be kind of, I would say, like 70% movement tech, 30% combat, at least from what we played from the demo. You'll have to fight through a variety of enemies. Enemies can kind of flash red or become enraged, in which you must either parry or kind of do a perfect block, or use your spear to kind of calm them down so you can then stun lock them again. But there's definitely a heavy emphasis on movement and different abilities. You gain a kind of omnidirectional dash that you can use. You'll also get hover, and I'm sure double jump is somewhere in the equation. As you explore the space station, you'll be able to open up more areas, teleport around, and again, all that good Metroidvania stuff. If I had any concerns from the demo, there are very few actual checkpoints. You'll get kind of your save room / hub areas you can teleport back to, but it can be a little bit tricky to navigate. The minimap does an okay job of giving you the information, but this game really likes hidden walls, floors, and that kind of thing that hide the actual route. It's very similar to that of the Metroid series, but a little bit more, I guess, trickier in that respect. We didn't see anything unique in terms of powers or abilities in this one, but this is looking to be a very competently made Metroidvania. So if you're looking for a challenging one that's going to force you to confront both your jumping skills and your combat skills, then definitely give this demo a check. We now go to a Diesel Dome. This is a kinetic FPS that feels like Ultra Kill meets like a Bullet Heaven or Arena wave-based design. You are a gladiator, and you must entertain the masses by killing anyone who dares step into your arena. Combat is incredibly fast-paced, and the flow is that as you kill enemies, you build up Fever, and Fever is your experience as you will unlock new perks. These can change the properties of your weapon or unlock helpers that can aid you. As time goes on, enemies will start appearing in various parts of the arena, and you must deal with them or they'll take away your experience. All the while, the threats get higher, the enemies keep coming, and the blood starts flowing. The feel of this one is really well done. You can definitely tell that there's a lot of oomph to how the guns and your kind of social abilities will work. My two concerns. The first one is that it did start to feel a little bit repetitive. The arena doesn't really change. I was hoping for some bosses, mini bosses, something to be added in to mix things up. I was just not seeing that. And by about the 12 to 13 minute mark, I was just destroying everything in the arena. And I would have liked to have seen, I think, a little bit more clarity or some more visual clues as to where enemies are. The enemies feature very similar color palettes as to the backgrounds, and it's so easy for them to blend into everything that it can be hard to find them. Still, this is looking to be a very solid game, and I'm curious to see kind of where the bite is going to come in. So if you're not tired of booming and shooting, and looking for a whole lot of audience appreciation on top of that, then definitely give this one a try. We go from something that I'm quite good at to something I am definitely not, and that is Rift of the Necrodancer. This is the sequel to Crypt of the Necrodancer, where the rhythm is back, but now we're in Guitar Hero style. You will once again have to time your beats to the music, and try not to mess things up. The kind of unique twist of this is that instead of featuring notes, you have the different monsters, and each monster has different behavior as to what happens when you hit them. While this is all well and good, this is definitely not the game for me. I have enough trouble just getting notes down, rather than when they start moving and shifting and doing stuff like that. So, comes as a recommendation if you enjoy this style of gameplay. If you're like me and still rhythmically impaired, then I'm afraid there's no amount of rifting or raving that's going to convince you otherwise. But, you don't mind a good dance and beat? Then definitely give this one a try. We now go to System Purge Hollow Point. This is the direct sequel to the first game, where we once again return to what appears to be a dystopian world, where cloning, teleportation, and other things have gone very wrong. We are exploring yet another facility, trying to find answers and save our lover. So expect lots of tricky platforming, disturbing body horror, and things getting very strange here and there. Now, with this being a sequel, the game does not waste any time in terms of ratcheting up the difficulty and the challenges. So, if you're coming into this blind, expect things to get quite hard right from the onset. And I would recommend you check out the first game first, not only to catch yourself up on the story, but to get used to the kind of platforming and movement tech that the game expects out of you. Now, with that said, this is looking to once again be a combination of some very challenging platforming and some very trippy sections. So if you were a fan of the first game, this definitely comes with an easy recommendation, and if what you're seeing looks interesting to you in this one, again, I would recommend you play through the first game as your start, as it basically is going to operate as a tutorial for the gauntlet of challenges you're going to be getting into with this one. We now go to Symphonia. We trade body horror and destruction for music. We're in a musical world where instead of music is a weapon, music is the movement tech. The world has lost its music, and it's up to you to bring it back. Well, not exactly playing music, but platforming here, there, and everywhere in order to bring it back. Now, unlike Rift of the Necrodancer, this is not a game about having musical skills or rhythmic timing. This is more along the lines of being a very challenging platformer. It reminds me in some sense of The End Is Nigh, with kind of like the launching yourself across and that kind of movement tech. But you also use your violin bow as a bounce slash enhancer for your jump. Now, from our time with the demo, it's kind of hard to tell how far in terms of difficulty this game is going to go. It doesn't appear to be a Metroidvania. I'm not quite sure if we're going to get additional abilities and tech like that, but expect a lot of, I would say, moderate to very challenging platforming sections, with each area having its own environmental hazards and tech you'll need to learn. I love the art and the aesthetic of this one, with some very detail-rich foreground and background elements. So, if you are a platforming fan first, orchestra fan second, I would definitely recommend this demo. We now go to Kill a God. This is an action roguelite, where the unique point of this is taking the idea of the infinite sprawling Path of Exile perk tree to its most, I guess, logical conclusion in this respect. Your perk tree is quite literally your map. Each node on it represents a potential upgrade, but it also represents your next arena. Take harder nodes, you'll get better upgrades and skills, but the arena will be harder and enemies will get boosted accordingly. Your job, as in all these games, is to figure out that perfect combination of skills, gear, and perks in order to completely dominate the enemy before they just stomp you into the ground. The general play of this one is good. It does feel a little light in terms of impact. I would have liked a bit more, I guess, like visual distinction of some of the enemy attacks, as they kind of blend into the background very well. A lot of arrows and that kind of thing. While I'm not quite sure if the balance is there, at least in this version, there is definitely potential here For fans looking for another roguelite where they can do build crafting and just go completely over the top if they get lucky with the right stuff. So if you are an action roguelite fan and looking for one that's going to be very build focused, then this is another easy recommendation. We now go to Carnival Massacre. This is a survival horror game built to emulate the PlayStation 1 era. When your sister has gone missing at a mysterious amusement park, we must brave the place and try to save her and solve the mystery. The game checks off every box in terms of its survival horror design. You have very kind of stilted combat, fixed camera angles, and lots of puzzles and traps to avoid. The game nails the aesthetic, I think, really well. You can play it with like more pixelation on the screen. I just went as smooth as possible. With that said, there is some jank in this one. Part of it is the old school design, and some of it's just by the design of this game. Combat can feel a little bit awkward. Some of your weapons have such a long recovery animation that the enemy can just come up and just destroy you while you're waiting for your character to finish reloading or going through the shot. And we also ran into issues with some of the camera angles. Fixed camera angles aren't bad, but the game puts traps on the ground. And you see, traps plus camera angles that you can't adjust or change is kind of second level trolling for a game like this. And I would not suggest to have that in a game along these lines, especially again, since you cannot control the camera in any way, shape, or form. But the game does nail the assignment of making kind of a PlayStation 1 era survival horror, with all, again, the joy and jank that comes with it. So, if you don't mind a bit of jank and aren't afraid of clowns or the circus, then give this one a try. And for the last game of our showcase for today, it is Super Dash. An arcade style, it's described as a bullet heaven, but this reminds you a little bit of kind of like a Geometry Wars style, where instead of using gun and bullet, you will be dashing into enemies in order to clear them off the stage. The game features an arcade mode and a self-described roguelite mode, where upgrades stay with you as you make progress throughout the waves. The general concept here, I think, is really well done. While you are limited in terms of health, anytime you take a hit, the game will give you a randomly generated challenge, which if you complete will restore your health. I like that as a way of incentivizing you to get your health back without kind of the arcade style of punishment of once you take a hit, you're kind of already on death's door. My only issue that I had from a gameplay perspective was I had a hard time understanding how the whole dash level, dash range kind of works. As you've been watching the footage, the line that shows you the trajectory of the dash, it doesn't show you the length of the dash. And that can lead to some misconstruing about where you're supposed to be aiming or how far you're going to be going. I would say this is definitely going to be for the arcade-minded fan, not so much for the hardcore action roguelike or roguelite, but the design is certainly intriguing, and for that, it makes it onto the list, and for the final game of our showcase today. And with that, another video wraps up. We have more streaming tonight for night number 4, and you'll find a video on that one coming real soon. Let me know what you think about these games down below. And with that said, time to rest my voice and prepare for the next stream. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff, be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and if you're interested in more in my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.